My name is Kelly Ferguson. I work with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. I'm part of the Energize California team, and I work in the territories of Santa Barbara and Ventura County. Very happy to be here today with all of you to really listen. That's what this is all about, to hear what is affecting your communities and what you do in your day-to-day work, and how we can use technology. Like Amanda was talking about, there's solutions already available, and how do we get those actually deployed, or what doesn't yet exist, and where are those kind of empty spots, and how can we help fill them in the future. So really what our job is about as a program is, one, to support these clean energy entrepreneurs, but also about connecting these dots so that these technologies can make a difference everywhere where they matter most. So I'm also here supported today by Kemi, and if you could please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Kemi Sawyer. I'm a professor from Capo di Pomona, and I'm also the director of the Student Innovation Idea Lab, and I'm here to assist colleagues.
What we're going to do in this period of time, I think we got about 40 minutes or so. I'm just going to briefly talk about the case study that Amanda referenced a little earlier, and then just as kind of a case study to get some ideas going and to get the topic rolling. And then I'll pose some questions to the group. We have a pretty big group, otherwise I'd have us all introduce each other, but that might take the whole time. So we're going to, I'll pose some questions. Kimi's going to help with the mic. I will do my best to write big about comments I hear and ideas. And when that happens, if you can just briefly, before you make a comment, say who you are and who you're with, and that would be really great. So, and is everyone pretty clear on? Okay. As was referenced earlier in Amanda's presentation about the Chumash Community Energy Program, that was where I worked previously before my work at LACI, where I was the environmental director. And back in 2011, we received funding from the EPA for a Climate Showcase Communities program. As we are probably all aware, it's very challenging to implement energy efficiency audits and retrofits pretty much anywhere, but there's some very unique challenges in disadvantaged communities. The Chumash Reservation, for those who aren't aware, is in northern Santa Barbara County, and it has a lot of income disparity between neighbors there, and so there were challenges with particular homes needing to get retrofits. But on the reservation, there's a lot of distrust for people outside coming onto the reservation. And so that would pose unique and a lot of challenges when community members wanted to get solar or wanted to get retrofits, but didn't feel comfortable working with certain organizations and groups. And so through this, we designed a program where we integrated kind of workforce development and partnered with community members and partnered with outside organizations that did solar installations and energy efficiency retrofits, and designed a program where we would train people on the reservation and outside the reservation to be able to do EPI and energy audits and solar installations. And we ran this program for several years, and we found it to be an extremely effective way to work with the community. It was empowering for young folks who hadn't had a lot of job experience, or people who had been out of the workforce for a while and were having challenges getting back into the workforce. And so it was an effective way to go basically door to door and have folks in our program, trainees in our program, knock on the doors of their neighbors and of their family members and talk about what they were doing and get them involved in the program. And so through that program, we had a lot of success in terms of getting energy audits and then transferring that into energy retrofits. We also had a very successful solar installation program too. There are additional challenges to installing solar on the reservation due to financing challenges with the reservation system, but that's a whole other topic for another day. But all in all, it was a very successful program. And from it, we trained about 50 people on the reservation, or 50 people from the tribal community, I should say. And 10 of those ended up having work within the environmental office on the reservation, even after the program was over. So it impacted a lot of people and saved people a lot of money and has had some impacts down the line. And so I wanted to share that opportunity and share that experience with you guys as kind of just like a program that was really successful for us, but also really challenging. We had to really think over different ways to make the program work. So ending that, I wanted to kick off with some questions. Real quick though, how many people here are from municipalities? Okay, nonprofits or community-based organizations? Academia? Private industry? How about startups? Sweet, okay, cool. All right, I'm going to throw the kind of an open, broad question out for you all. What are your community's energy concerns? What are you hearing from people, or what do you experience yourself? And who are you hearing that from? It's your turn.
I don't need the mic, it's okay. I always need the mic? Okay. Hi, Mike Reibel also from Cal Poly. One of the big concerns on our campus actually is the lack of really efficient or easy to use, timely mass transit. And we've spent untold millions on parking structures, and it seems the more we build, the more crowded they get. So it's that sort of paradox that people have noted. Also with freeway construction, the more you build, the more crowded they get, because people say, oh, this is great, I'm going to use it. So everybody uses it. So we really have to break that chain somehow. This is what I'm hearing a lot of. The students in particular are really organizing around this. They want more bike access, and particularly more transit access.
Anybody else?
Thank you. I'm Linda Bartlett with the City of Los Angeles. So I work on programs where I'm working with CAL FIRE to do a lot of urban tree planting, improving the canopy so that we get some of that urban heat island, trying to reduce it from the outside, from the shade. But I find in South LA, my housing stock is 1920s. So it's not very energy efficient, and DWP will come in and do a lot of retrofits in that community. But there's a disconnect between this softscape with the hard infrastructure weatherization type changes. I'd like to see those two programs come together. If you are talking to a homeowner from either perspective, if you can flag if you're working on the weatherization and have somebody come in and say, these are the strategic locations for your backyard and front yard trees, and you'd be eligible for a free street tree. Somehow those programs need to be connected, and I think we're still working in silos.
Didn't exercise this morning, so.
Hello, my name is Jason King and I work for a company called Charge Bliss. We focus on alternative renewable energy projects, and we also go after grants through the state. I guess one of the questions that I've heard, and I've also thought of myself, is the last active nuclear power plant in California, which is Diablo in San Luis Obispo, is going to be going offline in the mid-2020s, so not that long from now, and that provides quite a bit of electricity. And with the push of the state wanting to have, say, 50% of all the energy come from renewable sources within the next 20 years, I believe that's one of the goals they're trying to push for. Where is our renewable energy going to come from? And a lot of people say, wind or solar, but it's intermittent energy. So are you just going to have a lot of battery storage to capture that energy? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's the long-term goal if we're taking off a line of a large active nuclear power plant that provides a lot of electricity? What's the goal after that?
Good morning, my name is Stella Ursula from Grid Alternatives, Greater Los Angeles, and we install solar systems at no cost to disadvantaged communities, to families that live in pollution-burdened areas. Our challenge is providing families that really, truly can use this service to homeowners that, you talked about housing stock, to provide them with this service when they have a bad roof or they have unpermitted structures, other issues that exist in the household. So that's one of our challenges there, and as well to provide this type of service to folks that live in multifamily apartment buildings. So we're struggling with that. Thank you.
I'm Natalie Whitfield, and I'm with the UCLA Water Resources Group, and also work a little bit on energy conservation. And I wanted to ask the cities what they are thinking about doing with the issue of the fact that a lot of people living in homes in disadvantaged communities are renters, and how do you deal with the owner? And a lot of commercial buildings that need upgrading energy efficiency are owned by owners that triple net their rent their places and just pass everything on to the consumer, and that's really hard for small businesses in disadvantaged communities. So I'm interested in hearing.
Mike Antasa with San Watershed Project Authority. In the water conservation mandates of the drought in 2015, an analysis by UC Davis showed that the water conservation that was accomplished in the state eclipsed all the energy conservation that was attempted in other programs for energy conservation. So by conserving water in the drought, we conserved more energy than all the energy programs tried to conserve. So I think keeping track of that water energy nexus is both directions. There's energy in our water and there's water in our energy. I think is important as we move forward.
Okay. For those of you who maybe aren't hearing anything from your stakeholders and community, why do you think that might be? You heard a little bit about maybe that's not if you've got other top of mind priorities, maybe that's not something that comes up very often. And it's not a concern that you can address at that time and in that moment. Is there anything maybe about the information getting to people and challenges behind that?
You volunteer yourself.
My name is Lisa from Business Resource Group, and we provide technical assistance and business assistance services to small businesses. And that is one of the concerns, and why I'm here today is to gather more information on the opportunities available to small businesses and disadvantaged communities, because there is this lack of information. And I mean, there's a wealth in here, however, it doesn't trickle down the way that it needs to. And it might come at a later date. I'm hearing all these studies, and I'm like, wait a minute, no. Some of these communities really don't know. And they would like to see, hey, by conserving energy, they really contributed. So I think that would definitely help them. Thank you.
Mike Antos again. We are running a water energy nexus grant from the state through UWR that supports low-income community members doing indoor and outdoor retrofits for water conservation. But what we discovered as we were building it is that rebate programs, which are our traditional way of supporting homeowners and making changes, is really difficult for low-income community members to achieve because they have to front the money of the transition and then wait for the rebate check. So our program, we are directly hiring the contractors that are doing the work, so they work for us, and then homeowners can sign up to be part of the program, and it's no money out the door. They just have to coordinate with us to get the work done. And we found that program is working much better. So that's called the Water Energy Community Action Network. We can. I see a lot of people scribbling that down, and you can find me in the break. I'm happy to talk more about it.
Hi, my name is Holly Bachmann. I'm the statewide senior director for California Consulting. We do grant writing. And so actually City of Carson is one of our valuable clients. A lot of our clients, which are actually disadvantaged communities, so we find that just even this conference itself is bringing people together and with information but also brokering relationships, even with state agencies like Watershed and your agency. So I think what we've been hearing with our clients is just relationship and connections and networking, establishing, trust and also exchange of information. And just being aware of who they can talk to about even just grant applications, but access to the funds.
Hello, my name is Chavez, and I am representing Mount San Antonio College in the city of Walnut. Hey, CPP, I see you guys. So right now, one of our major hurdles is how do we communicate the college's need to be able to create a solar farm, upgrade our energy efficiency in our buildings, and communicating that to our stakeholders, just because of the hurdle of cost efficiency. And also the city of Walnut is hard to consider a disadvantaged community, so any move that we make is sent to court into litigation. So it's just how can we communicate to other people that these are moves that need to be made to be able to help everyone and not just a few inconvenience next to a couple of $1 million moves.
Actually, I'd like to make 2 points. The first one is going back to energy concerns. One of the concerns that I have heard with public transportation is safety. For example, especially when daylight saving times ends. Being a woman standing at a bus stop at 6:30 at night, 7 o'clock at night after you get out of work in the dark, when savings time is no longer around. The second thing is, regarding energy concerns, is the San Gabriel Valley is considered a desert land with regard to funding coming in for such programs. A lot of agencies don't plant themselves in the San Gabriel Valley. We're the stepchild. They plant themselves in Pasadena, Los Angeles, and other locations, but in their grants, they include the San Gabriel Valley. But a lot of the money, a lot of the funding doesn't trickle down to the San Gabriel Valley. And if they don't plant themselves in the San Gabriel Valley, how do they know that community? How do they really know that community and the needs in that community? Thank you.
Okay, we'll take more here.
My name is Peggy Lemons. I'm the mayor of the city of Paramount, and for a lot of the different programs, I would say that 2 big issues that we face is, one, we do have a lot of rental properties, and the people that own them are probably going to have incentives to put some type of energy efficiency processes in, or they're not going to do it. It's just going to come down to that. They're going to want a reason to invest in that. And then for the single-family homeowners, I've heard many times when the programs kind of just flow through our community really quickly, it's a trust issue. Because if you're at home, you might get 20 calls a day from some kind of solar company promising you, free installation or lower rates, but they kind of blow in and blow out. There's no stability there. And so they want somebody that they can go to if it doesn't work out the way that the salesperson promised them, that they can trust. So I think that has to happen. There has to be some kind of stability from who's offering it to go to with the questions throughout the process, or once it happens, if it doesn't work out the way that they want it to. I have had residents call me after they've had solar panels installed and now they have roof leaks and they have problems and the program's gone. So there's a lot of distrust and there's a lack of incentives.
Great, thank you. So thank you very much for all of your comments, and that was great. So next question I have to you, who are we heard a little bit about some ideas for solutions, but it's really challenging to give that to the stakeholders and the decision makers. So who in your communities are the people that need to be in the room to hear these types of things, to hear these types of solutions, to make things happen and change? Because that's something that eventually we can kind of take and hopefully bring together to potentially bridge this gap to make these things happen. So who would you need in your community, in your organization, to make these decisions, to hear these things, to make these things happen?
Well, for us, it's the mayors, it's the city council members, community-based organizations, pastors from churches out there. So I think it's a combination of all, those the stakeholders that work daily with individuals that live in underserved communities that can best utilize these types of programs.
Okay, can you repeat some of those again?
I said
Mayor,
mayors, city
council
council members, just elected officials, pastors, community-based organizations.
Okay. Anything else?
This Chambers of Commerce.
About fifth graders. Right? Third, fourth graders, whoever's doing science curriculum, let's teach them what to do. They'll get their parents on board.
What about labor unions?
It's great, labor unions. We heard a little bit, it wasn't specifically mentioned, but the idea of the,
I would say the different ethnic groups to get their input.
Schools, educators, kind of what you're saying,
is it for the educators?
Schools, educators, kind of.
We have heard a little bit earlier, I think, from the young lady over there about people not liking certain things, certain programs, projects going up in their backyard, the whole NIMBY movement. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about that. That's a major barrier, major challenge, I think, for a lot of communities. What do you think is a good way to overcome that in terms of when we're thinking about stakeholders?
You don't have the trusted advisors. I represent the diverse business community. And we have seen from our hearings at GoBiz that the effectiveness of reaching diverse communities has not been, the penetration has not been there. And it's because the trusted advisors who serve those communities aren't engaged. Joanne has been a great partner here in Carson, and so has a city in Mike Davis, but we have to engage those, if you want to reach the small business diverse communities and their employees, you must engage their business advisors, their community lenders, and the folks who represent them, because we did a survey of 371 businesses. Only 11 of those businesses recognized and realized that they were about to get a new utility. That's how significant it is. So there's got to be some coordination, and I think our state treasurer has just made a major move to make that happen yesterday by announcing a centralized website for business incentives. But now we need to connect that to community groups across the state that are entrenched in these communities, which is going to take legislative budget and allocation.
Okay, that was great. Any other comments on that before it was a perfect transition into what are some ideas and some solutions that maybe already exist, and even ones that don't exist, that'd be great.
So in terms of getting the people from a neighborhood to come to hear what you have to offer, we were able, through our programs, we always hold what we call a sustainability or resource fair. And last year we did 4 of them across 3 months, sort of one right after the other. But what is sustainability to me is not the same definition for somebody living in some of these communities. But we allowed all sorts of, we probably had 100 booths that ranged from solar companies to information about water saving and building efficiencies. But we also included barbecues and free lunches, and doctors were there to do blood pressure monitoring. We also had Natural History Museum, and the River Rangers came out. We had a band from Crenshaw High that played, that woke up that neighborhood, even if they hadn't been thinking about coming, came. So we had hundreds of people. And when the first one was on a school campus, an elementary school campus, the principal there said, we try to hold raffles for our students. And the parents are looking for things like dishwasher soap, basic amenities. So we held a raffle and also gave out basketballs and a bicycle, and YMCA provided swim lessons. So again, if you want to draw the people, we had a lot of other stuff, but we had some of the basic environmental things there as well. And people would stop at each of those booths and talk to those people. So I felt that was a good way of really bringing the community, individuals together.
Great idea in terms of sharing information.
Hi, Ben Rusak, Liberty Hill Foundation. We talked earlier about, it was mentioned, the need to de-silo programs, and I think there's a few efforts being done statewide right now, called one-stop shops that are just getting off the ground. The one that's most advanced right now is in the EV world with ARB, but there's also a call for the CDC and other groups to start, other agencies to put together these coordinated outreach programs that can be that can look over across energy efficiency, renewable energy, electric vehicles, etc., and have a one-stop shop or a centralized database to help eligibility for all these programs across the board. This is something that is very gestational right now. My group, we're working with community partners in SoCal Edison on developing a couple of pilots here in the Los Angeles County area and SoCal Edison territory that will sort of start this outreach. But one of the most important things here is that this sort of centralized database that's done like through a web portal is treated separately from the need to have these outreach pilots that have community organizing at their hearts, where the money is getting to community-based organizations that are the trusted advisors in their community that can knock on doors and sort of get through that overload that a lot of low-income households are getting, from all these different, sometimes predatory offers that makes them feel like they don't know where to turn. So when you can have a trusted community partner like a CBO knocking on a door saying, we're here to sort of advise you over this whole landscape, from ratepayer subsidies to energy efficiency subsidies, rebates, potential for renewables and EV technology altogether, then you've got something that can start to break down those barriers that have been talked about so much with the SB 350 proposals.
That's great, great start.
Regardless of what I'm going to treat people, I think one of the solutions could be really looking at changing community behavior, and using models such as the community-based social marketing models, and really rooted in social psychology, where it says that we really need to be able to engage community members and be able to have them be the ones that deliver messages so that community behaviors begin to happen, behavior change begins to happen. So it takes a little bit more than just bringing awareness and public awareness and general marketing, but really engaging the advisors, really engaging the community gatekeepers to not only become aware, but become the ones that deliver the message. And then from there, it kind of bears root to being able to create really behavior change, which can lead to addressing most of the energy concerns that we have with this fire.
So I was reading recently about the city of Tucson. This is a water example, but it applies very much to energy. They have a program where they've invested millions in subsidizing on-site water capture for people's homes, like big cisterns. And what they found, there was a study was done afterwards, is that people not only use that, but they reduce their water use overall. So that it's a real signal when you have these kinds of projects for people to be able to understand better that they can save money as well as water, and they get both into the philosophy, into the economics of it.
Thank you for that particular comment, because I had just written down cash incentives. Nothing works better than cash up front. I mean, we're trying on the EV side to figure out how to put the rebate on the hood, and as far as DACs are concerned. But the most effective efficiency program that we ran in the LA Basin was the DWP toilet exchange. Do any of you guys remember that? That program gave cash incentive distributed through community organizations for the switch out of that toilet. You just nailed it. It continued to increase with efficiency use, and because the awareness and education was subsidized and paid for through the community organizations to continue the teaching and do the work. Somehow in our current state, we are incentivizing the product providers to do part of the work. And until the dollars are redirected and distributed, whether it's a multiple advance or multiple distribution methodology, until they hit the consumer or the end user and they see benefit, they don't have the incentive to act. The toilet thing, they got money when they turned in the toilet. And then we could continue to give them other incentives as they reduced consumption or took other behavioral improvements. But to put all the money in the hands of the Sunruns or our other type of installers as the beneficiary, we're not going to see the impact of the shift model.
What about any examples of solutions coming from communities themselves, whether it's a technological solution or a policy solution? How could we do better jobs of amplifying what's going on in disadvantaged communities from a solutions perspective? Anybody hear of anything or have any ideas on that?
I just have a couple thoughts. Talk about City Hall Gardens. When you look at just for solar roofs and the permitting processes and the actual installation to a homeowner or to a home, there's three things that come in mind. You either have a true homeowner, or you have it's a rental property, which dovetails with businesses. Usually when we have the rental properties, all the incentives of the programs disappear on the rental property because it's a business. Either the policies have to change to it's a blanket, or it's a structure versus who owns it to get the incentives in the communities, which would be the legislative act, which I think I would follow the same model that was done for the granny flats, where you bypass the local planning agencies per se, and you have a direct permit, you streamline the permit processes for those type of installations.
Anything else?
Real quickly, in our conversations with members of disadvantaged communities, one of the things we keep hearing over and over again is how the communities have a sense of pride in their resilience. And the thing they're resilient to is often inequities, all right? So there's some challenges to think that one through. But the idea of imagining that there are both strengths and needs in these communities, I think is an important way to approach all these efforts. Because it's not just a rescue mission, right? This is an effort to empower people to improve the places that they live and that they care about. So I think keeping in mind that there's strengths and needs that need to be approached. And you're going to hear a little bit of that a little later too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I went to a community school event a couple weeks ago, and what I found was that there's not a lot of educational programs that educate kids at an early age. The STEM programs, they're probably the best as far as initiatives and goals that talk about water conservation or building efficiencies or like electric vehicle charging stations. And it was surprising to me that the most progressive school systems in the state are actually in the Bay Area, most likely because of the funding up there and then a lot of resources. And it just makes sense as far as a lot of the things that we're talking about, if we can focus on more of getting these ideas and initiatives into the schools and the children at earlier ages, they'll grow up with those and they'll be more progressive and thinking more open-minded. Whereas a lot of us are trying to do this as we've gotten older, because when we were in the school systems, they didn't really have that so much. So I was just thinking, address this more from an educational perspective at an earlier age for children, and then they can grow with it and move with it.
That's great. So I think our time is up. So I want to just quickly go over a few things on this solutions angle. Am I cutting it now? Okay. So first of all, thank you guys all so much. You had a lot of really great input, and I hope that you guys got something out of this too. We saw a lot of people talking about information, trying to get that back to the people who need it. So I see here we have a lot about like hubbing this type of stuff, getting it in one place, these one-stop shops, hub for information. There was a lot of talk about budget and getting that money to the right people. So I heard a lot about community-based organizations, trusted advisors in communities, and working with those partners to get funds and then implement those. I saw that a lot when I worked on the reservation as well, and I think that's really effective. Let's see, what else? Incentives, money up front, benefits to residents, not just the homeowners. So we're seeing a lot of money where it needs to be, because the more complicated it gets, it is more challenging to get the results that we need. Was there anything else that I missed? Okay, great. Thank you all so much. You guys did a great job. Thank you. And please feel free to reach out to me if you guys want to be involved in this discussion any further. We'd really love to talk with you guys more. Thank you so much.